What's up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com. As always, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. Give the video a like if you enjoy it, comment, share it. And if you really enjoy what we're doing here and you keep coming back, consider hopping over to what you see right here, our Patreon page. Just $1 a month makes a huge difference, so you can join at the $5 tier, get early access to our podcasts, or you can go beyond that too. But any little thing counts, and it makes a huge difference in covering the overhead. But not to bury the lead here, we're going to be talking about the new Slipknot album, We Are Not Your Kind, that just came out today via Roadrunner Records. And I want to be super clear, this is not a review. This is why I call these quick opinions. This is why when I do roundups, I call them recommendation roundups. Like, I don't want this to be seen as anything more than just sort of my own personal off the cuff reactions to this. So people tend to get mad, and I'll say more on that at the end. But yeah, this is just me sharing my thoughts on it, and I want you to know too that anything I ever share on the channel, I want you to go check it out for yourself. Like, I will never really talk about something that I don't think is at least somewhat worth your time. So all of that to say, let's just talk a bit about this new album. And I'm lazy. I don't feel like editing anything, so I'm just going to kind of mess around on the computer screen here while I talk. Um, just off the cuff, it's not bad. It's better actually than I expected it to be. It starts off relatively strong. They've got that obligatory kind of dramatic intro. It's very synthy, kind of feels like something out of Blade Runner. And then the whole kind of first half is pretty strong. I did not like Unsainted when it first came out, but it's grown on me. It's definitely gotten stuck in my head. It's definitely still not one of my favorite Slipknot tracks and not one I'll continue coming back to a lot, but I have to admit, I was listening to it again this time and I caught myself singing along with the chorus several times, and there's something to be said about songwriting that can do that, that can really just worm its way into your brain and kind of stick with you like that. So, yeah, Unsainted, not bad. Definitely just well written song. The chorals do feel kind of out of place for me, and I really love choral vocals, but just sort of the kind of campy, whimsical vibe of the melody that they chose for them feels more suited to something kind of like Umbrella Academy is like what I was thinking of, where that type of music would fit in, whereas this song feels a lot more like it's supposed to be serious, it's supposed to have some weight, and so I feel like it kind of takes away from that on some level. But then we get some pretty solid heavier tracks on this one too. Birth of the Cruel, Nero Forte is one of my favorites on the album. I think that one in particular does kind of a better job of sort of balancing the heavy parts with the more melodic parts and manages to keep it heavy throughout, even when they're mixing those two elements. Critical Darling's pretty good. Red Flag, I was definitely listening to that one. Was like, okay, there's those keg hits I'm looking for. Like that's that's what I come to Slipknot for. So that one definitely caught my attention. It's just simple, heavy, not particularly memorable, but it's enjoyable. And then Orphan as well, which I like. I feel like the chorus is kind of weak, which is surprising because they've gotten pretty good at writing these catchy choruses. But that one, yeah, it's just doesn't really do it for me. But the heavy parts and the verses I really like. What you're going to hear a lot of people probably talking about on this album is the more experimental moments, though. Uh, you've got you got a few of them. Death Because of You is kind of when that first starts really creeping in, and it's more of just an interlude, but it's definitely a little bit weird, a little bit electronic. And there's a few moments like this. My personal favorite is Spiders. Spiders is actually pretty darn good. It doesn't feel like a Slipknot track. I don't feel like it belongs on this album, and it kind of like just it breaks the flow of the album. But I'll give them some credit. Like, it caught me off guard when that piano kicked in, and it sort of reminds me of like the more croony Dillinger Escape Plan tracks, if you're a fan of them and you've listened to sort of their later stuff. But yeah, I like it as a song. It's just like it doesn't feel like a Slipknot song. Um, So that one's good, but then the experimentation kind of goes off the rails in other parts. Like I don't even know what the fuck My Pain is supposed to be. Like that's probably the low point of the album for me. Um, Definitely my least favorite part. Just pulling up my. This is kind of how I've broken down how I feel about all the different tracks. So with Unsainted again and Nero Forte being high points, got a few higher ranking tracks, but then there's definitely some inconsistency. I'm not a big fan of Death Because of You. A Liar's Funeral too is just like too melodramatic and kind of whiny for my personal taste. But the real one with the experimental ones, yeah, My Pain, definitely the low point of the album. I don't like it. It's a no from me. um, and I also feel like the album kind of ends twice because the logical conclusion for the album feels like Not Long for This World, which is just this moody, long, morose kind of track. And it just feels right to just sort of end it there. And then they pick up again with Solway Firth, which feels like it belongs actually earlier up in the track listing. And it's a decent song in its own right, but it just feels weird to throw that in at the end when we've sort of already had our big conclusion. But yeah, overall, I mean, just looking at this, it's not a bad album. Like, I definitely have albums with a lot more lower rankings on it. There are some songs on here that I enjoyed quite a bit listening to. I think it's a little bit actually more consistent than the Gray Chapter, but it does suffer from the same similar problem in that it's very kind of top loaded. Some of, like, most of the better tracks are kind of on the front half of the album. But there weren't too many parts I hated, and especially considering it's another over an hour long album, I'll give them credit for maintaining my attention throughout the majority of it. There's only a few parts where I really just want to literally skip over things, but yeah, so it's not bad. All the same, it's also just not what I look for in a Slipknot album. I know they're just in a different place mentally, and they're probably going to continue making albums like this, and some people love it, and that is perfectly fine. But for me, when I go to Slipknot, I want keg hits, wretched guitars, and chaotic screaming. Like that is what these guys are known for in my mind, having been with them since the self-titled album came out, and again, I've said it a million times, but that's the album that got me really into metal in full. Like, truly, that self titled album was like my gateway to where I'm at now with all the much heavier, more intense stuff I listen to. So, understand me, this is not me crapping on the band and saying that they should cater to my personal taste. Like, I'm glad they're just doing what they want to do, and that's fine, but it's just not what I want. And Corey has a really good voice, but he's got other projects he can sing on. Like he has plenty of other outlets where he can do that. And so I just wish there was less of it in Slipknot. I just want more of the heavy side and leave the softer stuff for Stone Sour and whatever else. That's just my take on it. I just feel like there's too much kind of hot topic melodrama is the phrase I always use to describe it. Um, I'm hesitant to give a score because, again, this is pretty off the cuff. I'll admit I've only listened to the album really like twice in full now, so it's not really fair for me to give a score. But if you really want one, I give it about a 7 for enjoyability. It was a fine listen. I enjoyed listening to it. I don't feel a particular drive to like go back and revisit it so much. I probably will just to see how my thinking evolves on it, but I don't feel that like a lot of albums I listen to it and I'm immediately ready to listen to it again. Like I have certain albums I've even said in the review where I was like, the album ends and I just turn it over and started at the top again, and I'll do that like 10 times. This isn't one of those albums for me. So like a 7 for enjoyability, an 8 for musicianship. It's fine. I wouldn't say it's anything necessarily to write home about, but there's some interesting stuff going on here and a few interesting touches, but kind of cookie cutter in other areas. And so, yeah, just nothing, a few things that leap out at me, but not enough so to really warrant saying that the album as a whole is super impressive on that side. And then I'll give them some extra, I gave them extra point for innovation. I'd give them about an 8. in that area, because they definitely are trying some new things. They're experimenting, sometimes for worse, sometimes for better. But I feel like I need to give credit where it's due for that. So all that to about a 7.7 C plus. That feels pretty fair to me. Just slightly above average, not bad, but not particularly amazing. And let me say again, to all the fanboys out there, if at any point this opinion, this quick, I almost said review, but it's not. If at any point this video makes you feel mad or indignant, that's not healthy. Like, nothing good has ever come from blind worship. That's literally what dictatorships and genocides have been built on. So if you can't even criticize your heroes or be willing to hear criticism of people that you enjoy their art of, then you're, I'm sorry, but you're just another one of the sheep that this band, that Slipknot, wants you to be the exact opposite of. Like, I feel like that's a lot of what their music is about, and wearing the masks is, and just their mentality is to not be a sheep, not just fall in line. And so it's just as possible to fall in line with the stuff that you truly hate as it is with the stuff that you truly love. And nobody ever thinks they're the bad guys. Like, when you're in line, like, you always think you're on the right side of things. But if you find yourself watching this and getting mad and just snapping to hit the dislike button because you disagree, then you are a sheep, and you need to break out of that. Like, you're better than that. You're an individual human being. We all can have different opinions on things. And again, I have a deep love for these guys. I have a very special place in my heart for Slipknot because they are such a foundational element of my kind of metal headdom, if you will. And yeah, so just keep that in mind. I don't do things to be negative. That is not what this channel is about. That's not what the site is about. However, I will call things out as I see them. I just put a video up about how much I hate the new album art for Tool. And that's not me being like, oh, Tool sucks. No, I like Tool. I'm a fan. And that's why I think it's important for the fans, the people who truly love the art and the music and whatever, to be willing to just say when they see something they don't like, and not have that be such a damn big deal. So yeah, this review is not a personal. I said it again. This video is not a personal attack on you or even the band. It's just my own personal thoughts. And to quote the dude, that's just like my opinion, man. And also, bear in mind, clearly others think differently. Metacritic right now, there aren't too many reviews in, but I mean, look at this. Like, we got a lot of like 100s and 10s. Mostly just glowing reviews right now. And again, there aren't that many, but I think I gotta say, even people that truly love this band, I think you should be willing to look at these and go, this isn't a 100. Like, come on. Like, that's pretty extreme. Like, even my all-time favorite albums of all time, a lot of them I would not consider to be perfect 10s or 100s. Like, absolutely not. That's, to me, a perfect 10 is, it has to meet so many criteria on a more objective level. So in any case, though, I'm also just pointing out that I recognize that some people just glowingly are having positive reactions to this album. If you're one of those people, good for you. I'm glad. Go out, blast this music, enjoy it, have a good time. But personally, for me, it's just kind of a whatever. So all that to say, go out and enjoy the album. Give it a listen, see what you think. I'm interested to hear in the comments. If you disagree with me, instead of just like getting mad, take a deep breath, write in the comments why you feel like I'm wrong, what I'm missing, what your different opinion is. Like, I want to hear that. That's what this is all about. That's what the podcast is about too. I like to talk to people who, like, we can just bounce ideas back and forth and whatever. But yeah, I don't want this to go on too long, so we're going to end it there. Again, please like, comment, subscribe, hit up the Patreon, and yeah, stick around and watch these other videos, and especially listen to the podcast. We do full, like, hour to hour and a half episodes talking to people in bands and content creators and all that kind of stuff about various aspects of metal music and everything connected to it. But this is Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.